Okay. And let me bring up my little intro here and we'll carry on. Love it. Love it. And Steve, I want you to be here and let's get into this problem with leadership in the US and UK because it's critical at this moment.
Okay, well, are you ready to play your intro?
Yeah, let me start my intro. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, my friends, depending where you are.
Right, hang on. I haven't taken the stream yet.
Okay,
just give us...
all right, so go ahead, take the stream. Do what you have to do.
Okay, on 3, 2, 1.
Bingo! Hi! Good morning, afternoon, or evening, my friends, depending where you are. I am Emily Windsor-Craig, and this is History Reset, and where I am, it's 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on June the, 13th, 2020. History Reset is brought to you each Saturday to bring valuable information to the public that corporate media refuse to divulge. This program is a public service, but please donate to People's Internet Radio and keep the People's Truth coming at you without commercial adverts. And today I've got Steve McKenna with us. And Steve McKenna has his own show after mine. And Steve, where are you?
I'm in Emily. I'm in a small village in Ireland in a county Westmeath called Clonmelon.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. All right. And Ireland, the Dublin, Ireland libraries are where the real history of the Celts and Picts reside. And I have this drive to get there and learn enough Gaelic to read the real histories because the history we have is bullshit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely bullshit. Now, you were asking me about what's going on at Buckingham Palace.
That's right, yeah. During the week here.
Yeah.
I was in work and I just happened to mention, I asked one of the ladies there, I said, have you heard anything about what's going on in the UK? And she said, what do you mean? No, I generally just drop questions and see where they go and how open-minded people can be.
Yeah.
So I just said, have you heard? I said, I've heard a rumour that there's been something going on at the gates of Buckingham Palace, and there's a rumour that the Queen has abdicated. And I was in a room in the canteen with about maybe 6 or 7 other people, and they all looked kind of stony faced, and everyone just kind of looked and went, no. As I expected. So I just mentioned that to you before you went live on the show, and you said we could kick it around and.
Oh boy, can I speak to that? Because when she abdicated, a couple days after she was crowned, in 1953, first of all, she signed her vows up at the top of the page, not down at the bottom, which means that she refused her vows. She refused them. Several days later, there was another transaction that she made with probably the Privy Council to exempt herself from responsibility for whatever happened. Okay, she's never functioned as a queen. She's never allowed her husband, Philip, who is of eminently royal blood from Greece, to function as king. She has been the globalist darling of the commercial set the whole time. All right. And so it was about 5 years ago that I began poring over the vows that she made to lead the church. My God, she never did anything but sit in the pew. To lead the British culture. My God, she's never done anything but allow hordes and hordes of immigrants to erase British culture. She's never done anything to protect English common law. She signed all those Lisbon agreements and allowed the EU to just simply take over. So for 5 years, I've been fighting the stonewalling and slow walking of the monarchy with respect to asserting their own sovereignty. All right. And that's why my dad was deposed, kicked out, And it was a doppelganger who abdicated. It wasn't my father himself. My father himself disappeared into the American South and essentially was never seen again. He married Claudia Ruth O'Keefe and had two daughters in wedlock. Okay, my full sister, Margaret, I don't know if she's still alive, but she's barely hanging on by her fingernails. Okay, and so I have taken up the banner to vindicate my father's name. He wouldn't follow his half-brother Adolf Hitler, who was the patsy for the Nazis that were connected to the Anunnaki ETs, and he wouldn't follow his father, the Zionist, who was being blackmailed by Alfred de Rothschild and that whole Zionist trip. Okay, and so he was thrown out, not legally at all. All right, and the archbishop at the time was completely misinformed about my father's activities, and he bought bit the bait and did to my dad what was absolutely unconscionable in terms of the Christian faith. He was not a very nice guy. And so in this late date, my father would be 126 years old this year.
Okay.
Okay, and my grandfather was born in 1865. All right, and so I was born in 1944, and my youngest son was born in 1986. And so there's these huge distances between the grandfather, the father, and the kids, which you see every once in a while. All right. So I've taken up the banner of clearing my father's name. No, he was not a Nazi, and he sure as hell wasn't a Zionist. So what's going on at Buckingham Palace is that the Privy Council UK is doing nothing. They are like the Senior Executive Service in the United States, whose mission statement is to bring on the continuity of governance movement, to take governance away from the people of the United States and hand it to a handful of industrial elites to control totally top down what used to be a free nation. And the Privy Council UK is doing the same thing to the UK that the Senior Executive Service and continuation of governance is doing in the United States. They are fascist, they are National Socialists, they want to control everything. And the problem is they don't know how to control anything. They're truly lost in their methods, which are the Frankfurt School, the Milner Kindergarten, the Bolsheviks. Okay, they're into this, I'm better than you, and we're better than any of you, and we're going to show you how we can control all of you. And that is what I stand against. That's what I stand against. So Buckingham Palace has been cleared out. All the windows have been boarded up. The one who's parading as the Queen today is at Windsor Castle with Philip, and I just feel so sorry for Philip because he actually had a brain. I hear that he's into pedophilia. I don't know if that's true or not. And so what my episode is about today is, who can we believe? Okay, we are all separated and distinguished by our identity politics. If you're a Catholic Christian, you believe a certain a set of beliefs that make you think that you are the only deal in town. You're the only right one. And if you're a Protestant, you have a set of beliefs that says the Catholics are bad and the other people are bad who don't believe exactly the way you do, but none of the Christians are concerning themselves or examining themselves for their behavior and what they are allowing to occur by the Masonic Order, by the Illuminati, by the secret cabals, the white hats, the black hats, the retired military, that are deem that the people who do the work and solve the problems are incompetent to govern ourselves, which is absolute bullshit. The elites are the ones who have abandoned our original organization and established methods for problem solving. The elites are the ones who drive the left to talk about what's wrong without having methods to correct or restore what we already had that worked in the past to solve our problems. Okay? The elites simply deign to talk to us about solving problems, resolving conflicts or disputes. They prefer to remain in power because identity politics divides all of us against all of the rest of us. And this is not what my father wanted. This is not how he comported himself for the 42 years that he served the monarchy. He was for the people who worked. He was for the people on the ground, just as I am. Now, I don't know if you know how much you know about my background, but what MI6 did to me, MI5 or MI6 did to me, was they took me away from my biological parents, and through the child trafficking networks, they dumped me into a poverty-stricken Bolshevik Ukrainian Russian family in San Francisco. And I grew up in a family of communists. And, blood runs thicker than water. It always runs thicker than water. And I was not very old, maybe about 3, when I looked at this family from Russia who were very angry people and who were into the naming and blaming and shaming game, although I never saw them be nice to anybody. And that brings a whole wave of regret over on my head. And so from the time I was 9 years old, I was aware that there was something really growing wrong in our society. I remember in Miss Carlin's class in the 4th grade, I gave my first public, public in quotes, speak to the class on how races really shouldn't be enemies, because we all have to learn how to just get along, okay? And I was so disenchanted with my family's behavior. They were so angry. When I was 6 years old, I was in Venice Beach, California, with my grandparents because my foster parents were having a divorce. And I walked along the board. I was all by myself because my grandparents were old and they didn't pay any attention. And I walked along the Venice boardwalk at 9 o'clock on a foggy morning in July of 1950. And it was all very quiet. It was all shut down. And on my way back, I ran into a lady who had a book in her hand, and she read to me about Jesus and what his behavior was like. And I remember thinking at the time, that makes a certain amount of sense to me, that you should do to other people what you want them to do to you, and that you should let your yes mean yes, and you should let your no mean no. So at that moment, I said, okay, Jesus, you can have me, and I'll work for this particular point of view. And that's the point of view I work on now, that the behaviors that are given in the Beatitudes in the book of Matthew and Mark and Luke and John are behaviors that lead to long-term good outcomes as opposed to short-term good outcomes, which are expediency and mercenary ethics. In our generation, we are seeing that maritime admiralty statutes have reduced the level of ethical concern of industry and commerce to a level of protection rackets, piracy, usury, and bribery. That's where our society has sunk to. And that's because the purveyors of information, the newspapers, the magazines, the movies, the videos, are manifesting and articulating a level of human behavior that's not human, it's subhuman. We are not seeing the best role models of human behavior in order to be able to mimic and copy and live out the ideals of former generations. We are being methodically taught to pursue our personal preferences, pursue our personal wishes, pursue our personal betterment, pursue person, self. It's all about just us. It's in the media, it's in the movies, it's in the videos, it's in the schools. In the United States, the school curriculum, the Common Core curriculum, which was paid for and developed by the Bill Gates Foundation, actually disassociates and dissembles an understanding in the children of the laws of causes and effects. What that curriculum is full of is arcane and abstract definitions of generalizations that have no application for children the age that they're dumped into these definitions of definitions of definitions, which is to say our children are being methodically stupefied by the textbooks that the schools send home. And what's horrifying to me is that the teachers don't even notice. The school boards don't notice. The children in my neighborhood, just to give you some idea of how alienated they have become. When I'm walking down the street, walking to the store, the children that I meet on the sidewalk don't even look me in the eye. They don't say, hello, how are you? Or good afternoon, or anything. It's as if I didn't even exist. And that's the way our children are being taught a complete and total lack of manners. They have no clue what manners even consist of. And that's because of the curriculum that the public schools are teaching them, which the parents are at the wall trying to make a living, and they read the textbooks and it seems pretty harmless and it seems like it's not calling on anybody to hurt anything. But the children have no concept of what civil behavior is, what manners consist of, what thrift consists of, what is lawful and what is not lawful, okay? What is healthful and not healthful. Laws of cause and effect are not present in the curriculum that the children receive in school. Now, is that the way it is in Ireland also, Steve?
Unfortunately, Emily, yes. Well, when I say yes, to a degree, a lot of the children who will be, let's say, the same age as my daughter. Now, my daughter, Holly, is 7. And in her school, well, they're not in school now because of the whole coronavirus, but they're taught to respect for your elders. I mean, that is something that is kind of taught in the schools, but it's in once they leave primary school, it's not continued on in the likes of secondary school. Like my son is in secondary school, and they're taught lessons, but and it's just kind of textbook BS.
Textbook BS, right?
Yeah, BS as in bullshit.
BS is in bullshit. Now, my oldest children are now in their 50s. And my youngest son is 34. And he was a graduate of West Point Military Academy. And he and I, because of his West Point education, he and I can discuss issues and conflict and security and difficult concepts. But his older siblings in their 40s and 50s are part of the younger generation that merely take care of their own situation and push aside the larger concerns of what is truth and who is awakened and who is not awakened. And so in my searching and researching, since I was in university graduate school back in I graduated in 1993 in conflict analysis. All right. Since that time, I have been busy trying to figure out what the fuck is going on here. That's all I've been doing. What is going on here? And so I've looked into discipline after discipline after discipline after discipline to figure out, okay, where is this one? And I found out, okay, let's start with the A's, with astronomy. I was a Xerox digital imaging technician, and I understand how the color copier works and how the colors play out, how hue saturation plays out in NASA photographs. And I've been able to determine that NASA photographs only develop white light, and they do not develop either infrared nor ultraviolet, so you're only getting a small part of their pictures. And if you develop the other spectra in their photographs, what you can see is their life there. There's life there. So astronomy and NASA and NSA and what's going on the moon and Mars and yakata smackata is all a staged drama for our benefit. They want us to believe that they're doing X, Y, and Z. And I can't argue against, I can't argue for. All I know is that their data is lousy. Their data is lousy. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at botany. We're going from A to B. Okay, in botany, we have the herbs that are illegal and prosecutable. Weed is prosecutable. Mushrooms are prosecutable. However, the drugs of MK Ultra and Monarch and Big Pharma that take out 250,000 people a year in iatrogenic disease caused by the drugs, are fine. Now that doesn't make sense to me. All right. Why are the drugs okay and the herbs not okay? All right. That is not true to life. Okay, let's go to C. Let's go to cancer. Cancer is a hyperacid condition of the cells in which a fungus becomes involved. We know what cancer is. We know a lot of ways to treat it. And how are they treating it? They're treating it with poisons. Does that make sense to you? No, it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the next. Let's look at geography. All right. We have this fight going on between the flat earthers and the spinning sphere. Okay. We have this fight going on. And the actual geographers are not doing anything to clarify or point out how the contradictions are amping up the problem of how come we don't know what ground we're standing on. Is it flat like a pizza? Is it a spinning ball, or is it something else? And you look at your old maps and you see something else entirely, like a broken mass that hit the ice and broke apart, which is shown on some maps and not shown on other maps. So geography is broken. All right, geography is broken. Let's look at history. Look at history. And I have a very favorite YouTube channel run by a guy by the name of Martin Leideke. And the name of his channel is Flat Earth British, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Flat Earth. And he sits there and he smokes his cigarettes, and he shows us the etchings and the maps and the ancient daguerreotypes, the ancient movies from long ago, and that show us that 200 years ago and 100 years ago, there were catastrophic events that practically destroyed civilization. And that's not the story that's in our history books. Okay, there was a mud flood sometime between 1812 and 1840 that stretched from St. Petersburg, Russia, all the way to San Francisco, California, and it probably went further than that, but it's never talked about in our history books. Okay.
Yep.
And then World War I went through a similar set of horrific events that took out millions and millions and millions of people. So we've been going through some kind of apocalypse over and over and over again, because there was another one in the 17th century. So our history is broken. Okay, our history is broken. We can't believe the historians. Okay, so let's go look at the church. Okay, let's go look at the church. Can we believe the church?
Ooh, no, I don't believe so.
Okay, well, let me explain why. Because the church only has one book. Now, have you ever known of anybody who could educate themselves who only read one book? Come on,
No.
Come on. All right.
But they do call it the good book.
What you can call it whatever you want, honey. You don't get educated with one book.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work. Okay, now we have a half a dozen books that discuss ancient history. We also have the Sumerian cuneiform tablets that go back 450,000 years. We also have a conspiracy between the church and academia about the age of civilized man. And both the church and academia agree that civilized man is 6,000 years old. Bam, that's it. That's all. We only get 6,000 years. The fact that the Sumerian cuneiform tablets goes back 450,000 years. The fact, okay, we have dozens of cities buried under 100 feet of water that were somehow all wiped out at the same time. The fact that we have found titanic, what do you call them? Artifacts, titanic artifacts that are actually made up of organic flesh and blood that have frozen and ossified in place to show that the scale of living beings on this world at one time was much larger than it is now. Okay, so that paleontology is wrong, archaeology is wrong, and anthropology is wrong. All right, and the church is limping on this one book to tell us that the only way to save our soul is to believe believe some things. There's this catechism, and every church has this catechism of beliefs that you're supposed to buy into. Never mind.
All based on faith.
All based on faith. Never mind your behavior. Never mind the realities and outcomes that you manifest by your existence. Never mind being judged by your works, but it all depends on whether you believe in Jesus, okay? That just wears me out. Okay? I have looked into most of the Protestant churches and the Catholic and the Orthodox and 4 different denominations of Jews, and they're all busy arguing identity politics over beliefs. And it just wears me out, because we are judged on the basis of our behavior and how we affect each other and whether we can get along. If you've ever actually read the books, okay? And the books I have one profane history book called Voyagers 2. There's the Urantia book, which is part of the New Age movement. There's the OWASP, which is probably the last valid, genuine download by our planetary sovereign that we have, and it's very difficult to understand. We have the Sri Guru Granth Sahib of the Sikhs that was indicted or inspired by the same king of the Anunnaki that inspired the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. Okay, we have all these versions. They're all telling the same story. They're all talking about the same characters. And so they all represent the point of view that says, you know, the universe is full of intelligence, and it's full of a hierarchy, and everybody has to learn how to get along with everybody else. And the people who say, I'm righter than you, and we're righter than them, and we're special, and we're more special than you, than anybody else, those people are probably pretty misguided, okay? We all have to just, you know, get a grip and deal with reality. But the churches are not dealing with reality. They're dealing with their dogma and their catechism and their doctrines and their beliefs. And I can't even get communion, and I am a Church of England, I'm an Anglican. I can't get communion in a Catholic church because I haven't been through their 2-year program in catechism, even though the Church of England is very, very similar in outlook and liturgy to the Catholic Church, just as the Church of England is very similar to the Orthodox Church in Russia. Very, very similar value system. But you can't get in there. You can't be accepted as a believer in Jesus and as a member of the Christian faith unless you go through their belief system and their catechism and their stuff. All right.
So they're programming, Emily, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, it's their programming. It's their thought control group. And that's crazy. You know, God is not a monster. He's a geneticist. He's a coder. He coded our DNA a long time ago. And his job now is simply to defend the code and to keep biology functioning in spite of sociology, sociopathology, and madness of ideologies. And so that's what I speak to is, look, each identity group has its belief structure that it believes in, but it also has a bunch of phenomena that it's not paying any attention to. Okay, the liberals are not paying any attention to the fact that we already have positive methods for solving problems that need to be restored and repaired. Duh. The conservatives are not paying attention to the fact that in spite of the fact we have methods of problem solving that used to work, they don't work very well anymore and they need to be fixed. Duh. All right. The Black Lives Matter group, I can understand that. The people with darker skin are at some kind of disadvantage cognitively. However, they make up for it because they're very responsive emotionally. They have a different gift. And the white people who are head tripping on definitions and theories and hypotheses and alternative this and new that, the white people that are head tripping make life very difficult for the darker people who are more feeling and more heart connected. So the Black Lives Matter people are not wrong. They're not wrong. However, they've been co-opted and pulled into anger and hatred and stuff by the left liberals that they derive from the Illuminati and the Masonic orders, who are real head trippers, the real head trippers. So we can't believe the churches, we can't believe the scientists, we can't believe the academics, and we can't believe government. So who do we believe? This is very important.
Yep.
We are at a time of judgment where we have to learn to believe our own souls. We have to learn to face absolute treachery and tyranny and confusion. And because we are cosmic souls with a connection to the rest of the cosmos, we have to be able to read between the lines. That's the assignment. Read between the lines. And don't get caught in the identity politics, and don't get caught in hating people because somebody says that they don't have it correct. All right. Now, when I point out the Privy Council UK and the continuance of governance in the US, those are the two agencies that have presumed upon themselves the responsibility to take hold and take charge of governance out of the hands of the people entirely and deliver governance into a one world order, top-down, tyrannical situation. And I'm saying to you, those are the people we need to be bitching at. I need to get something to drink. Can I have a minute? Would you put a little music on for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. We'll pop a little song on here.
Yeah.
Just let everybody get a drink, and we should be back momentarily.
I'll be right back. Okay, cool. All right, for you guys at Facebook, I just had to get something to drink, because you know me, when I start talking a lot, I start coughing a lot, and that's just how it is. All right, let's see what kind of music he's got for us. This is Steve and my first time together. My other Steve is in a pool tournament today. All right, so, all right, Steve, I don't hear any music. What are we doing? What are we doing?
No, the music is going out through the live stream, Emily. It is going out.
Okay, good. Well, tell me when it's over. And
okay, well, I can end it anytime. Just let me know, and I'll fade it out.
Okay, I just got some soy milk. When I start talking, I start coughing, and I don't know if that's the function of age or enthusiasm. All right, you can stop at any time. Do you have any questions for me, Steve?
It seems, well, from what you're saying, it does seem like there's a lot of doom and gloom, and I'm just wondering, like, I think everyone, the masses, are asleep. It's very hard to wake people up and educate them as to what's going on, and I'm just wondering, like, would you have any suggestions, any ideas as to, like, your next door neighbor, your work colleague? How can we just get those people to kind of maybe, turn away from the TV and spend more attention on themselves and community, rather than watching TV, watching all these protests and all these riots and all that stuff that's going on? I mean, it's everything from religion to the riots. They're all distractions.
Okay, I respect and regret what I have to say. You have to let those people do what they want. If they want what the cosmic dimension does, if you've read Revelation, and I've read it several times, okay. What happens in a time of judgment is that a system of treachery, protection rackets, and division is brought into manifestation, total treachery. And the souls, the people walking around have to choose between what is true and all of the pretenses and pretensions and staged events and bullshit that is going on. For people who choose the bullshit.
Sorry, Emily, 6 seconds.
6 seconds.
Yeah, we're going to be live in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Your question is, what do we do about the people who choose and prefer to be unconscious? And going back to my metaphysics and the book of Revelation, we have to allow them to, just a minute, there's somebody at my door.
Okay, I was just asking Emily during the break there, I was just asking her that a lot of what she's saying is very doom and gloom, and it doesn't paint a very happy or a very nice picture of humanity. And I was just wondering as to not so much was there a magic pill how to wake people up, but we all have friends and neighbors who we can see them kind of walking into oblivion, walking into a train wreck. And my question to Emily, as I say, just during the break there, was, is there, how can we, not so much how can we wake them up, but is there something that we could maybe do or say just to kind of give them a little nudge in the right direction? Not kind of give them a shake and try and wake them up, but just to, point them in the right direction.
There's a lot of things that we can do. One is we avoid bugging them about it.
Yeah.
Because there's the continual condemnation of being wrong that people are very defensive about. So we don't bug them about it. And we live by example. We do what works and we are effective and we pay attention to what's true, and they notice it. They notice it. And in the US now, because of the ridiculous and crazy behavior of the leftists, what's happening is a lot of people who were on the fence are now saying, oh my God. Okay, the people that were on the fence are looking at the wild, strange, crazy behavior of the left and saying, oh my God, I gotta wake up. All right, that's what wakes people up, is when the behavior of the people who don't want to know the truth gets crazy enough. We can't really interfere in the decision of another soul. I cannot interfere in the decision of my children or grandchildren. They are adults. I have a grandson who's 33, okay? They live their own lives. They are responsible for their own souls and their own souls' decisions. And if I push them too hard, then I'm wrecking the relationship. Can't wreck the relationship because our relationships to family are cosmic. And this is what Commie Core curriculum is not teaching our children, that the church is not teaching our children, is that our relationship to our families, to our bloodline, is an eternal relationship that we don't want to spoil or toss in the garbage for no particular reason. We want to preserve our family relationships, even if the people in our family aren't getting it and they're not awakened yet.
Yeah, that actually happened to me, where like in my family, I had people who didn't actually get it, and I tried to, I did push too hard, and they backed away, and they kind of ostracized me to a degree, and then I was the one thinking, what did I do wrong? All I'm trying to do is help them, but I understand exactly what you're saying, but that's why I was saying, like, and that's what I do now. I don't try and convince anybody of anything, but if I think something is one way and they think it's another way, I just ask questions,
Yeah.
and I get them. You know, I mean, I had a very brief talk with one of my work colleagues. He said something about 9/11, and I just asked him. I said, "What's the height of the gap between the floors in the Twin Towers?" And he said, "I don't know, probably about whatever." He said 10 feet, and I said, "What size is an airplane, the height wise?" Because I said the pilot who was flying that, I said, "Jesus, he must have been some expert, because he actually got the whole plane right into the building. You know, it didn't hit off the concrete beam, it didn't hit off the floors, it didn't hit off the ceiling. It went straight in. Like he must have been a genius." And this guy looked at me and went, "Yeah," he said, when you put it that way, he said, "it does kind of sound a bit strange. Yeah, he must have been fairly good at flying."
I love
I
it.
said, but what they said on the NIST report was that he didn't really have much flying experience. So,
Right.
that's all I do now. I mean, I just ask questions, and it's fun, because and I'm sure you will agree, if you ask a question a certain way and people answer it, as they answer it, they can actually realize how silly the answer is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And there's another way, and that's to let time deal with it. Now, 20 years ago, actually 23 years ago, I was rooming with an attorney in Washington, D.C. on South 5th Street Southeast near the Capitol. And I was distributing my own little conservative newsletter on Capitol Hill and in Congress every week. All right. And the attorney that I lived with had been in the Reagan White House as White House staff. And he worked out every afternoon down at the Pentagon with the Secret Service. So he knew all the scuttlebutt, and he knew what the Clintons were up to in those days. And so it became known to the powers that be that I was hanging out with an anti-Clintonite. And so they put me on a list. And I was subject to gang stalking for about 10 years, from about 1998 to 2008. All right. I had a lot of attempts on my life. I had microwave bursts in the middle of the night between 2 and 3 in the morning on Tuesdays and Fridays. I lost jobs, lost places to live. I had my camper blown out from under me. Okay. Now, during that time, most of my children were already grown, and they became concerned about my sanity. And at one point, they actually wanted to have me institutionalized. That's how bad this got.
Oh my God.
It was rough. Okay.
Yeah.
But gradually over time, I was able, with God's help and prayer, to pull myself up by my bootstraps. I got onto Social Security disability because I acquired tumors in the adrenal glands that set up PTSD and sleep apnea and a bunch of other stuff. And I pulled myself together and began publishing books about community development and crafts and so on. And so over the 20 years, my children saw that I didn't go off the deep end. I didn't commit suicide. I didn't glom on to an identity ideology to prove that I was right, that I just pulled myself together. And now, 23 years later, after Mama died, I have a pretty good relationship with all my children. 2 of them are very, very supportive, and I have regained their respect. And I haven't said 5 words to them about ideology or being awakened. because they have been aware enough of what I'm doing that they have been able to see that a lot of the things that I said over the years has been vindicated and validated. And so where in the Bible it says you win them without a word by your silence is what I have experienced in my life and my family. Okay, I'm on pretty good terms with all of them now. Even though they all thought I was totally mad as a hatter 23 years ago. They thought I was ready for the funny farm. And God has pulled me through this. And that's how we all get through it, because this is a time of judgment. When people are not judged by the thoughts jangling around in their head bone, we are judged by how we affect other people. Can we get along with people? Can we have a good reputation among people? Can we operate by peacemaking principles, peace-abiding principles? That's the big issue. And so all of this hullabaloo and all of these protests and riots are simply a measure of the fact that our children were not taught how to behave. We can't even really blame them either, because they were not taught how to behave, and they're not being taught how to behave. And the people in power, the Privy Council UK and the Senior Executive Service and continuance of governance in the US, are the elites who are stonewalling in secret to keep any reform or restoration of governance from occurring. And those are the people that need to be called down. So if you want to send your Twitters, I send tweets to the Privy Council UK all the time. I send them to 10 Downing Street. I send them to UK Home Office. I send them to Duke of Norfolk, because he's the one who's in charge of the monarch's accession. I send them my tweets and show them that stonewalling and slow walking are what the elites are doing to the people, and it's not fair and it's not just, and it has to be corrected.
And have they responded to you,
Absolutely
Emily, in any way?
Absolutely not. I have never received a single response. I have sent first-class letters and documents to the Privy Council. I've tried to call them on the phone. I've tweeted to them. They are a group of better than us elites that have no respect for anyone. And those are the people that need to be corrected.
As a wise woman said to me once, Emily, they weren't smacked enough as a child.
Well, yeah, that's part of it, but they're also stupid. Yeah. Because what they don't understand is they are taking themselves down as well. They are pissing in their own territory, and they are going to be thrown out of power when the people tear everything down. But there's also an intervention at the cosmic level, because that's what occurred in the mud flood, and that's what occurred in the flood of Noah's day and in Sodom and Gomorrah. There's also a judgment coming from, I don't know, is it the ETs? Is it the galaxy? Is it the Greys? Is it Anunnaki? Where is it coming from? We know that the fires in California occurred because of laser technologies that our own people don't have. Where are these lasers that set whole communities on fire? Paradise is just 20 miles up the road. 35,000 homes were obliterated there in the space of a few hours. And what's concerning to me is that none of those people have shown up here to look for another place to live. Where'd they go? Where did those 70,000 people go? They didn't show up here. Where did the Valley Fire people from Mountain Cobb who were all burned out in the space of 48 hours. Where did they go? I haven't seen them either. Or the Lake Berryessa fire, okay? The fires are being set by some form of technology that we have no control over. And of course, the government plays stupid. All right, things are out of control for human beings here on this world. And it's time we face the fact that they are out of control. And we need to pray for deliverance, because we're not going to get deliverance by any of these so-called leaders that say they are helping us, you know.
Emily, can I just ask you a question?
Sure, honey.
I know you said that when all this was happening to you and you were being gang stalked and all, and your children thought that you were ready for the loony bin. I can only assume, I mean, when you said it, maybe you've said it so often, but you said it like you were reading off a shopping list, you know, get some bread, get some milk. But I'm sure it must have had it left a horrible taste in your mouth with all that going on and threats on your life. It must have been a horrible time to live through.
It was a horrible time to live through, and I'm very close to tears remembering it. It was awful. And the outcome is that although my children are supportive at a distance, they don't talk to me very much. And so I have almost no access to any of them or any of my grandchildren, because I'm sort of outside the norm. And it has been very, very difficult. And I say that offhand like it's nothing, but it has been a hell on earth to have 5 kids and 9 grandchildren and have no access to any of them. And I have had to live my life completely on the grace of God, because I have no family around me, and I'm so odd in this neighborhood. I'm just so strange. I live in a neighborhood of immigrants from all over the world. They're Muslim, Sikh, they're Chinese, they're Mexican. And so I'm so odd here, and I'm just still odd. And yes, that is very, very hard. That's a very hard road, but I get the idea from the guidance that I receive that walking a hard road or a hard path is something that some people are called to do, and that it's going to all come out in the wash eventually. And the day will come when I'm not crying as much, but I do cry a lot. It has been very difficult.
I can only imagine. Not saying your children or your grandchildren, but I can understand, Emily, because as you said, you're walking a path, and your path it's gonna have difficult times. But I suppose if your children don't understand the path that you're on, or why you have to do what you have to do, I'm pretty sure you could just quit. You could stop doing whatever you're doing, and pretend to be the normal mother, the normal granny, that everyone kind of expects.
Yeah.
Well, that's steering away from your moral compass, and that's not who you are, I suppose. If you're on a path, you have to follow that path.
And not only that, but what I keep hearing is that this path has a destination I'm going to like. Okay, the path is going to turn out all right, like Job turned out all right.
Yeah.
And so it's okay. It's difficult, but we're going to get somewhere that's really going to be okay. And the problem is that all of the people need deliverance. It's not just me. It's not just the people who are hoping that things will improve. The whole world needs deliverance from this evil of treachery, protection tax, racketeering, usury, bribery, piracy, and slavery. The whole world needs deliverance, and I'll be delivered along with the world. How's that?
Yeah, well, as I said to you at the beginning of the show, well, before we even went live, you said you're just an ordinary grandmother, and I said, well, because you're doing what you're doing, you're not an ordinary grandmother. If anything, you're an extraordinary grandmother, because as I said, A lot of grandmothers will be sitting at home, watching the TV, probably doing the knitting, believing all the bullshit on the mainstream media and in the newspapers. But you are mature enough and educated enough to see through that and follow the path that you're on, where other people, you know, they don't get it. Well, I think you are one in a million.
Okay,
and although you have,
I'll be that. I'll be that. I give my permission and consent, as hard as it is to be so odd. I'll be that as long as I have to be.
Yeah. Well, you're in good company. And someone said a while back that if all the people who were kind of all tuned in, like the likes of, let's say, you and a lot of the people who listen and present on people's internet radio and other media platforms around the world, if we could all get our own island and move there, it would be fantastic.
I want to go to Ireland.
But you can come to Ireland. It's nothing special.
Well, actually, I could afford to live there if I could get there, so that I have something to look forward to.
Well, I can tell you there's a house next door for me for sale if you want to buy it. I'd love to have you as a neighbour. Just, you know, at least it'd be someone who I could have a conversation with instead of someone who just, you know, watches football and soap operas.
Okay, well, let's talk about that offline, okay, because I'd really like to consider it. And I have the work to do at the Dublin Library to look into our history, which has been so misrepresented to us. And also, I notice of all the stories I've read about Ireland and Scotland and Wales, all right, that my internal temperament and disposition is not really Scottish. It's certainly not English, but I might actually fit in Ireland. So let's talk about that, and maybe next week we can do a little more on that. I think the other Steve will be here next week, so let's have a three-way talk about some of these things next week, because I really love your participation, and you really get me sparking and going again, you know?
Well, thanks very much. You know, I wouldn't have even been here only for you. And I didn't even know you needed someone to produce tonight. It was only at the last minute I turned on and I seen the message from Laurie. And so anyway, it all worked out well in the end.
Okay, sweetie. Well, then we'll see you somehow. I'll talk to you until next week. And thank you so much for coming by. I really enjoyed myself this time.
No problem, Emily. Okay, Emily, just hang on there for a second. I'm going to play music on People's Internet Radio, and then we'll be, myself and Barbara Brown will be on there with the quiz. So back in a couple of moments.
Okay, and I ended the live.